The summer is flown by like a lot of summers do. And Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 16 has been going on, well, this Thursday, August 22nd, will be our 12th Zoom session. That's a pretty good run. Now, we've had, well, I'll put up on, this is the 7th video. Pretty sure it's the 7th one. And there's been a lot of content going on in it. The subject of making your practicing a time of connection and discovery opens up a lot of doors. Sometimes a title of something will come after the fact that I talk about something. Sometimes I pick a title or something that's in me and I work around that title. What does it mean? The same thing when I'm composing. Sometimes a piece will come that I wasn't really working on with a set aim. And then I've played a few times and think, well, what's the title? What's this about? What's it saying? And other times I'm going after something very specific, and that takes me on another kind of journey. And I never know exactly how the piece is going to turn out at all. And it's the same thing with the video. I was thinking of calling this video Integration and Application. But maybe it should be called Application and Integration. But they both need to work together. Before something is totally integrated into one's playing life, there has to be application. There has to be application for it. If you're not applying something that you're working on, how is it going to be integrated and find its place inside of your art, inside of your playing, even inside of a certain technical issue that you might have with playing the instrument, whatever instrument it is. Someone might say, okay, you need to hold this slightly differently and put a little pressure here, and you were doing the complete opposite. That's going to be a journey to go beyond that habit. And that's a real lesson in how hardened a person can be in their habit life. But depending on, which is the first overlay life, depending on how we think about it, second overlay, can lead us into different avenues of discovery. And if that keeps going strong, we might find, wow, it's going to connect closer to the third overlay. And third overlay is the purpose. But sometimes what we think is the purpose, after further looking into it and working with our playing and our music making, we find that the purpose might be a little different than we thought because we've gone deeper. Now, what does that mean, gone deeper? Closer to the cause, the actual cause of something. We can really be caught on symptoms or more superficial language, like that's musical. And even though other parts of you aren't putting a general statement, well, that's musical. other parts of you, inside of you, know that maybe other things are going beyond that. Especially if you don't eclipse those other feelings with going, well, that's musical. Instead of, oh, what is that saying? And what does that mean that it's saying that? Now, for some people, this just brings up feelings of, oh, that's too complicated. I don't want to think about it. I just want to let it come out. Well, let it come out. Let it come out. And I've said certain things before, like, a great chef knows the difference between different kinds of cinnamon, different kinds of parsley, different kinds of almost anything that we have a name for it. There's probably several kinds of it. Basil that comes from this part of the country, something similar that comes from another part, from another country. Like my wife said, smell this. And I said, oh, that's basil. And she said, smell this one. It's Thai basil. And you could smell that it was still basil, but different. That was very interesting. And I've done that with different cinnamons before and different vanillas before, different chocolates. And isn't it the same for all plant life and all animal life? In Asia and Africa and, different parts of Western Europe and Eastern Europe and the Arctic and wherever you're located in the world, there's going to be different birds. It's a bird, though. But you might have species there that you will not find in your country. Some of that's due to climate in relationship to the nature of that land itself. And so when someone thinks, well, I don't really know this piece of music. Let's say they're working on a piece of music and they say, I don't really know it, but I'll try to work out the dynamics and the phrasing. How can you? Either that or maybe that's a particular person's way into finding out what the piece is. But if they found out it was Jamaican in origin and not Romanian, that's a big difference. That's a very, very big difference, obviously. In the end, we can say it's music. However, it's not all the same frequency. Just like the different basils or vanillas or cinnamons are all different, but yet the same. And isn't that the same for human beings? You take a group of people from a particular land, and let's say people get in conflicts. Now, the people who usually get in conflicts around the world are governments. Right? And then people think, oh, this group is all as aggressive as that one, the government or the leaders of that government. That isn't true. And you might be walking outside. I'll give you another example and see rabbits and squirrels and bees, all of the same basic species, right? And think, well, yeah, that's a rabbit. Yeah, that's a squirrel. They're all different. They're all different. We had friends with squirrels. They're all different. And that's a clue to real inclusive of all life thinking within the natural diversity that exists with every individual thing. And yet we're all similar, and yet everything is connected to the laws of nature, which go throughout all creation, even if different aspects of it are expressed at different levels of life, because everything has different properties. Still, they're under the laws of nature. Like our playing is. I've talked about that on this series, and probably since the beginning of the Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection, I've talked about it, and well before it. And so when we're playing our instrument, all different kinds of things are involved. For example, if we play a note, just play a note, and then say, okay, let me play it with various colors. You will feel a difference. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and you'll hear it sonically. And the more you do this kind of thing, you'll be able to hear the subtlety. And this is where the greater connections come in, and the more really significant discoveries come in. Now, every little discovery can be significant, because you might think about, well, I'm going to articulate something right now, and I'm going to think about it more tongue-driven. I'm going to play it really thinking that my tongue is going to articulate the note. That's going to be the upfront feature. Okay? I was just thinking of my tongue. Obviously, other things had to work too, okay? But that was driving the bus. Now I'm going to have my air drive the bus. All of a sudden, I heard more tongue. Isn't that cool? Now I'm going to think of bowing the note. A nice down bow. Okay? And the note wanted to be a little longer. And now I'm going to be thinking up bow. Now what helped me to think up bow that time was to imagine F, B flat. So I had a direction. And all these little different things of how to view something can steer us in a slightly or very significantly, how much? It can steer us in a certain direction, either by a little or a lot. All right? And it's still all significant in varying degrees. And this is where the practicing is much less of a chore, if you're feeling that chore thing. I'm lucky I never really did. But this is just, it's inspiring, because you think, my word, if I'm playing with my automatic systems, my habit life, and I interject some differences, like I'm going to lead with my tongue, I'm going to lead with my air, I'm going to do a down bow, I'm going to do an up bow. You're leading it differently. And therefore, you're going in a slightly different direction. And you can feel a lot different parts of you get activated In other parts, not as much, or it integrates the whole thing in a much more unified way. And that's the beauty of what most people call concepts, right? A concept is like the great magnet that can take all the different, like iron shavings, this idea, I got to hold it like this, I got to make sure my tongue is here and my corners are down and blah, 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 all these different little parts and totally unify them. So you want something simple? Try different approaches and see which one unifies your playing for that day, or that moment, or that particular piece, possibly, right? And so the integration right now I'm speaking about is with connection and discovery. That'll go beyond trying to practice making all these little discoveries, and actually then where can you take them out of the practice room as well. So you deepen that connection and discovery in the practice room, and you take it out with you. You take out the attitude of what that says, the personal perceptions that start to happen, and you're being aware around you more and in you, in a good way, not complicated, in a natural living life way. And this helps you get closer to music as a living thing, which is a pretty advanced third overlay approach and reality. Because everything we do, believe it or not, is part of the natural laws. And when things get very out of balance and you feel you have to be something you're not, which is also something we got into, then this is where it gets to be a real problem, because you're always in a divorced or divided state, when there's actually a great unity going on inside of diversity of all of our various systems inside of ourselves. So, yeah, it's been a great time. This will probably be our last Zoom session, maybe my last video for Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 16. And for me, it's always wonderful working with the people who are interested in an approach that's not very common. But when they work on it and they start to get fruit from that, I'm very happy. That's the greatest gift.